fiction.
It had to be a
It was just a tradition and a culture that was intervened with different cultures.
That's why you
took
can
out
convert
from
to
different other cultures.
That's why
They
you
came together. That's it. That's all it was.
If we go with that route, we have to say that every single culture is the same exact route.
Only if Jacob is a mythical man. See what I'm saying? If we can prove Jacob to be mythical, then yes, because the blood started with his 12 sons, and from those 12 boys, it started a whole group of people. It was a family at one point. So if we can say Joseph and Jacob are mythical, then yes, you're right.
But then you would have to say that the Africans started from a group of people. The Chinese started from a group of people. The Australians started from a group of people. Everybody started from a group of people.
That's what I want to know. When did it come? When did it go from? When did being an Israelite go from being from a nationality to a way of life, like a system, like a belief system?
I have to say sometime after the split, because you didn't have the word Judaism until after the split.
Yeah, Judaism is a very new term.
And like I think I was telling this brother, it would have been called Israelitism if Judah was the one that was scattered. See what I'm saying? Into Syria or whatever. If Israel was the kingdom that was left behind, we would know it as Israelitism or something. It's Judaism, because the southern kingdom was the kingdom that stayed behind.
Yeah.
So that makes sense what I'm saying.
I believe that people can call themselves Israel based on them keeping the culture and the traditions and living by the legal code. Same reason why you call yourself an American, because you live over here and you live by the legal code. If you decide not to live by the legal code, they'll lock you up. Plain and simple. If you go to China and you have a baby over there in China, that baby is considered a Chinese baby. So you have nationality in.
That's a label.
Exactly. But is a convert subject to the curse?
This curse thing is something.
There is no curse.
Really,
Well, biblically speaking, it is.
No, yeah, that's what I know. I know where you're going, but that's what I'm
but
saying. It can't be.
I don't think it is either. I mean,
It can't be any curses. Is the ultimate point.
There's only two groups of people on the planet that share that word diaspora. You got the so-called African diaspora, which ain't all of Africa, because there's 30 countries on that big landmass on that shirt, and not all of them went into a diaspora. Only a certain sect of them. And then you got the Jewish diaspora. We're the only two people that share that same. There was a discontinuation of heritage in the Bible. Or the other.
You said Jews are the only people that got it?
Jews and Africans. We're the only one that have a diaspora. To where
So
the Jews supposedly were supposed to lose their memory of who they were and supposed to come back. We share that same thing.
So what I'm saying is, so again, what we're doing is we're totally negating what happened to the actual people over there.
and that's what I've been on lately.
Wait a minute. The Portuguese arrived in the Congo, right, around 1491, right? And the Portuguese systematically took people from that area, right, and brought them over here enslaved. And now what we're doing is we're saying that those descendants from just that one group, those descendants from those individuals, we're saying that happened to them because of a curse in Deuteronomy that was supposed to be applied to some Israelites. And how that cannot be possible.
Were there black Jews in Portugal? I mean, black Jewish slaves in Portugal?
Were there what now?
Black Jewish slaves?
May have been.
Or converts.
But let me ask you.
But what I'm saying is we can't.
Portugal was a Christian country, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Christian.
So how could the Native Africans they enslaved just convert themselves to Judaism all of a sudden? If Christians took them enslaved.
They didn't. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, since you brought up 1491, we got to think about 1492 with the Moors in Spain and all that, yada yada, all that extra history. Woo. So, if that was the case, we got to think about the story of Christopher Columbus when he first came around over here. It's not that he came and then after following him, they brought slaves over here. He took slaves from over here back over there. So it's like a big gap between I know it's the Atlantic slave trade, I understand that, but the numbers do not add up completely. The Atlantic is one of the roughest seas, oceans that you can even ride in. So how did you transporting millions and millions of slaves from West Africa? Unless we just been lied to how close we really is.
Well, I'm gonna say this, that I understand exactly what you're saying. There was other cultures. We could not say that slavery was just for Jews under a curse. That's impossible. Now, I will say that there's been sprinkles of evidence that these people had some type of Jewish heritage. Some of them, not all of them. But no, personally, I don't think that we can sit back and point that only people that went into slavery were Jews. There's absolutely no way I can point to that. Now, I will say that that culture existed over there in that land during that time, but I cannot say that those were the only ones that went into slavery. I do know that there was other religious systems that was going on during that time when the slave boats hit the shores. But I will say that those curses, just because the curses say that they was for the Jews, does not mean, for an example, if I say, well, if you don't, do what you're supposed to do as a husband, the curse or the punishment of that is you're going to get a divorce. Well, that applies to people that read the Bible and don't read the Bible. So it doesn't matter just because it's written in Deuteronomy 28 that you're going to go into slavery, slavery was inconclusive to only the Jews.
But the idea is people use our condition over here to prove that the curse is even valid, to validate. I'm saying it's not no prophecy and it's not no curse, because the idea is, because we're in the situation that we're in, a biblical curse that was applied to biblical people is true. And if we're not even the people supposedly talked about in the Bible, then my condition can't. If I'm not a Jew, how does my condition validate a curse applied to Jews? You get my point. You can't say because of Congolese, because of Fulani, because of Hausa, because of any of those African nations, because of somebody from Benin, somebody from Togo, because those African nations were kidnapped and enslaved, then that proves that this biblical prophecy is correct, because you're not even talking about the people that the biblical prophecy was supposed to be talking about.
See, this is what makes it different, is that it's more than just 5 curses. It's like 15 to 68. I want to say there's at least 20-something curses. I mean, they back to back to back, and this only describes one people. Now,
who is that people? Us.
Exactly.
Right? Now that's
the world over,
that's,
not just
that's
in North America. I'm saying the world over.
But this is what I'm saying. If you're saying that those curses apply to us, were those curses saying that it was going to happen to the African?
I believe Israel is.
If I say I'm making a prophecy that your descendants are going to be enslaved, and then somebody enslaved his son, and then I say, see, the prophecy is fulfilled because his son got enslaved.
That's what I'm saying.
And then somebody gonna say, whoa, slow down, buddy. You said Ricky kids was gonna get enslaved. You don't get to now superimpose the supposed prophecy of Ricky kids onto his kids just to try to make it true. I'm saying that if the prophecy was supposed to be for a specific group of individuals, and it totally happened to somebody else, you cannot superimpose that prophecy on African people.
But would that prophecy,
or the converts, any of that,
would that prophecy be invalid because it happened to both groups? Because after Deuteronomy, Israel went into slavery a number of times. They was in and out of slavery, in and out of slavery. So the prophecy was fulfilled long before the North American slave trade. So just because the prophecy happened to Umar's kids or descendants does not make the prophecy
never happened, is the point.
But the prophecy did happen. Israel went into slavery.
Okay, is Nostradamus a prophet?
Why you say Nostradamus?
I'm just asking the question. I'm just asking, did any of his predictions come true? See, what people tend to do is, when somebody says they make a prophecy, what we tend to do is we try to look for something in history that could probably fit that, and then superimpose it over that situation. What I'm saying is, the slavery that we went through was something that wreaked havoc on African nations. And now we're trying to say that a biblical prophecy is true about some Israelites or some Jews because of what happened to the Africans, and we can't do that.
No. I have never went and
way more cursing.
But yeah, I haven't said
But
that.
we're talking about our condition over here. How did we get here?
Now our condition
We're
over
talking
here,
about us
Yes,
primarily.
sir.
So how do we fulfill a prophecy?
a curse.
Or how do we fulfill a curse that was directed to somebody who we are not?
Now, when we say that curse didn't happen, that wouldn't be true. We obviously read about Josephus and these Jews being enslaved by the Romans. The problem is that we can actually say that curse was fulfilled with that slavery, or that curse was fulfilled with the Assyrians. That curse
So
was fulfilled.
we
But
not
that
the
doesn't
product of the
necessarily
curse
mean.
now. You see how much ground you giving up?
Exactly,
So now
but see-
so it's not us.
But wait a second. Israel been enslaved out of slavery, enslaved out of slavery, enslaved out of slavery. We can't say that those
It wasn't
curses
one
doesn't
time.
apply
Yeah.
because that slavery that happened in the North Atlantic slave trade wasn't Israel. I can agree with you. I'm not saying that was a Jewish
That's the story
enslavement.
that they give us. That we are the Israelites. Our enslavement was a curse. We are the real Israelites.
I
In
don't
Deuteronomy 28, it's specifically about us, not about anybody else. That's what they
I
tell us.
don't necessarily rock with that particular
So you just,
rendering of
so
that
you
scripture.
just gave it all away. Now I'm not disputing with you, but I'm trying to show you that you just let it all go, whether you realize it or not, man.
No, I've always said that Deuteronomy 28 is very unique, but that doesn't necessarily mean it applies to us as African Americans. Now, it is very unique, and Corey is 100% correct. It's a lot of things that's without question that's written in those prophecies that can point to me and to you. Black people have not. There's nothing else that can actually explain why black people, for generation after generation, millennia after millennia, has been under the same condition.
The European was vicious. That's the explanation.
But the
They were
European
vicious.
is new.
They are
My
brand new
question
on-
is-
The European is new. The
My
European has not always been around as long as Africans been around.
As
Africans
long
been
as we've been
catching.
over here, they've done it. And just like I just told you, it's a myth that there's a bloodline Israel. That's a myth.
Can I
Well,
say
I
something?
wouldn't.
All right, you said dealing with these prophecies, talk about us black people. Are we the only ones dealing with these same issues
Yeah,
in this
man,
world
that's
over
why I
here?
said we need to identify
Are we
the curses.
we not the only ones? I can go to other states where clearly it's white people that's living worse than we living right now.
That's what we got.
You know,
That would be their fault.
Because they got major advantage shit.
They got a 400 year. They got a 400 year head start.
but what I'm saying is if I make a prophecy, right now we're under. If you believe in the Bible, I get it. You're under the assumption that it has no choice but to come to fruition. What I'm saying is just because it's written does not make it true. That's my point of view. So what I think you're doing, brother, and I don't knock you for it, is you're trying. It's like trying to put the square piece into the round hole.
But see, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to make.
I'm talking about right
Okay.
here. Is you're trying to see what you read in the Bible about these and apply to all of us.
But if Corey reads Deuteronomy 28 and he identifies with some of those things in there without a shadow of a doubt, couldn't you say that may apply to him? Or if he read the Egyptian text,
Okay,
and
watch
he's
this.
reading the Egyptian text, and the Egyptian
let's
text
go a
say
little deeper.
A, B, and C.
When was that prophecy written? Let's go a little deeper.
That prophecy
We'll
was
see where we
written
go.
long before AD 70.
Let's say when. Why? Just walk with it. Y'all got
1250, 1275,
Who wrote
1300.
it?
We would say that a Jew.
No, who wrote it? Oh, so we ain't even
Well,
saying
they
Moses
don't-
wrote it.
No, they don't agree that he
No,
wrote
we don't
it. I would-
No, but
So Moses didn't
for
write it,
argument's sake, let's say Moses wrote it.
has the
Okay, wait a
original.
minute. So let's say
the original,
12.
but I'm
Let's say
saying-
no. I'm gonna just take his thing. 12. Okay, now we can look this up. The Hebrew script, and I brought this up at the debate, fam. You can Google it. There was no Hebrew script in that time period to even be writing this story in.
Oh,
In what
absolutely.
time period?
1200.
No, I
BC?
agree.
Where we
The
at
book
1200?
wasn't
Are we-
given.
are we
The
in
book
Egypt?
wasn't given
So
to.
no, what I'm saying is, okay, if I tell you, if my initial statement is this prophecy was written by Hebrew people in his Hebrew language in 12 or 1250 BCE, right?
13.
This is 13 B. This was when it was documented.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, okay, well, wait a minute, brother. There was no Hebrew script even in existence at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So how could it be written in a script that wasn't even?
Okay, that's an easy question to deal with. You don't have Moses' original writings.
You just said Moses didn't write it.
I'm just saying, for argument's sake, let's say he
Okay,
wrote it,
all right.
and let's say he wrote it around that time period. We don't have Moses' original writings. We have the story that was given to us that he got from Moses, or that was handed down. So
nothing was
No,
wrote
nobody
in
have-
1250. That's the point.
oh no, we can't say nothing was wrote in 1250. I'm saying that
There was
the
no
Hebrew
to write it
script
in.
that
so
we
what
got,
was it written in?
it could have been written in Paleo Hebrew.
That's what came around in the like 1000 BCE. That's what I'm saying wasn't in existence.
So
Okay,
are-
that's the way.
But are you saying that there was no writing system?
There was no Paleo Hebrew. There was no Hebrew.
But we don't have Moses' original, so I can't say it was
Exactly
written
what it
in
is. That's
Hebrew.
Where it come from. Exactly where it come from.
But
Phoenician.
it's a Semitic language still, right?
Yeah, it's still a Sumerian language. Still a Sumerian.
Phonetic in the Hebrew is like sister language, right? Just like the Arabic language.
But just think about what we now. All I'm showing is how much ground you have to give up, because technically we've always heard that the Bible was originally written in Hebrew, and to understand that you got to go back to the Hebrew. Now, if we learned that there was no Hebrew around that time, it was Phoenician. So now you're telling me that the real language that we need to be going to is Phoenician.
Now,
I don't see a big difference, but I gotta study it.
but see, here's the thing about that. We are under the impression that I got Moses' writings in a book. That's not how that works. If you write something right now and you write it in English, and 2,000 years later someone find it and they're gonna translate it to whatever language that they speaking at the time, and they're gonna say, well, yeah, Matt wrote this. Well, how could Matt wrote that and we don't even speak that language? Well, no. Matt wrote it. Moses wrote it in the language that he was accustomed to, and it was given to the people in a Hebrewic language because that's the language that they were speaking during that
When
time.
Moses trained in the way of the Egyptians.
Moses was an Egyptian without doubt. He was an Egyptian.
But we just said Moses didn't even write it. So how can we now
No,
say?
what we're saying is what we have is not what Moses wrote.
So
we got
just
what.
established Moses didn't write anything. That's what you guys just.
No.
told me.
I'm saying that
He said
the
for
scribe-
argument's sake. He said for argument's sake, yeah, he's going to say that Moses wrote something.
No, we got what the
that's what I'm saying,
scribes.
but realistically, in reality,
Never happened.
Moses didn't write anything. We have to establish.
No,
my
what I
point.
said was Moses
Yeah.
didn't write in
I mean,
Hebrew.
Okay,
Nah,
when
yeah,
did
he
Moses
didn't
write
none of
whatever
that.
he wrote? Let's go there. And we'll
I'm
see.
saying that Moses wrote what he wrote down in whatever language he wrote it down in.
When?
You have around the same exact time. For an example,
Well,
you got with
You can't
Moses.
say he wrote it if you don't have an original, because when
Nobody has an original of
I mean,
anything
when-
during
when-
that time.
When you read the so-called Moses writings, it says, and Moses said. and
Exactly.
Moses
So
did.
what do you
So
have?
know he didn't
You
write
have
that.
someone that gave you the story of Moses.
Well, you don't
So
have
if
the
I say that
original.
Genesis wasn't written until around the 3rd to 5th century BCE, how would you even dispute me?
How would I dispute you?
Yeah,
Can't.
you can't.
I can only-
if I say
3 to
Genesis,
500, hold
if
on,
I
what-
say Genesis,
where
if
do
I
we-
say
I gotta
Deuteronomy,
look at the
if I
time.
say these prophecies weren't written until somewhere between the 3rd and 5th century BCE, how can you even dispute that claim that I'm making?
That would
The
line
Bible
up
wasn't
with,
completed
I
until
think the book
the
of
3rd century.
Jubilees and Joshua.
Genesis wasn't the first book that was even wrote.
Exactly.
That's why I was going with next.
the
You kind of
Bible
beat me to it.
the Bible is a given text.
No, but wait.
We don't have nothing original from the Bible.
You gotta hear what I'm saying. So if I now make the claim that these prophecies weren't even written until the 3rd to 5th century BCE, but applied to somebody that was supposed to have lived around 1200 BCE or 1300 BCE, how would you dispute that the text wasn't written between 300 and 500 BCE?
Because you don't have no original.
You don't even have a language back then,
Yes,
fam.
you can't.
You didn't have a language back then.
So
No, I'm saying Genesis wasn't the first book. First of all, So what I'm saying is this prophecy, and I'm going back to these not so-called, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm going back to these curses that we're putting so much weight on. Because we keep saying that Moses wrote these curses, or God gave Moses these curses when they came out of Egypt as a mixed multitude. It wasn't even a pure bloodline no more according to the text.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying, if these prophecies wasn't even put down to like the 3rd or 4th century BCE, after you already had the supposed kingdom, you already had the split and all of that good stuff, how are we still going to put so much weight on these prophecies that did not even come from Moses?
Now, what makes you think that the book that Moses put this into a book form, what makes you think that this wasn't something that was passed down into the 3rd or 4th
Moses,
BCE?
that's the point. Moses didn't do anything. He didn't write anything. That's the point I'm making. And I don't see how you can get out of that if you're admitting that Moses didn't write anything.
No, I never said Moses didn't write anything. I just said Moses didn't write in Hebrew language. I'm saying the book that we got from the scribes that translated Moses' writing came to us in Hebrew language. No, Greek is a long time after that.
Yeah.
That was a Hebrew.
35th century BCE.
That was Hebrew speaking Jews long before Alexander the Great.
No, I agree with that.
Now, before Alexander the Great, that's when you get to the Greek culture. But before Alexander the Great, you had texts, ancient texts that was written in Hebrew.
Do you have Genesis, Exodus?
You have
Leviticus,
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers.
Before 500 BCE.
We can only go by what we get from the scribes.
Wait, you got it. Check the question. Do you have the first 5 books? Do you have that before 500 BCE? Do you have that complete set?
No, you don't have, no, absolutely not.
So again, if I tell you that Genesis was not even written until the 3rd to 5th century,
We see in the scriptures the book of this law. So you probably got a point. It probably wasn't, because Genesis really don't got much to do with the Torah. The book of the law will be a list of do's and don'ts, basically.
Yeah.
That's what was passed. That's what I believe was passed down.
So do you have Deuteronomy before the 5th century BCE?
Deuteronomy basically is the law. But I can't say you
have
got
that
it.
before the 5th century.
I don't say you have it in a codex. You don't have it on a.
So what's the oldest of this prophecy that we're saying applies to us? What's the oldest copy of that
we
you have?
Then we can't go by
Exactly.
what we have.
No, I do.
Because everything that we have is a copy.
I get it.
Okay.
It was a copy, but the copy that you have, what's the oldest?
No, I
one?
don't have a date on that, but I do know that Moses' writings wouldn't be something that was handed down. A scribe that translated Moses' writings would be something that was handed down, not Moses' actual writings.
So Moses' writings, okay, we at least got to agree that that's speculation at this point. Because, and first, think about it. Before this conversation, did you assume that the first Bible was written in Hebrew?
No.
You never, what you thought it was wrote in, fam?
No.
The first Genesis, the Torah. Did you assume that the first Torah?
The Torah came to us, and yes, I believe that the Torah came to us in Hebrew.
Okay, now due to your research now, do you now know that if Moses was a person that lived 1400, 1500 BCE, that there was no Hebrew to write in at that time?
See, that's what I'm trying to explain.
You gotta understand the
what
point.
I'm trying to explain is Moses and Hebrew don't have to be in bed together.
But what I was asking is, if now you gotta flow with me, if we've all been taught that the original Torah was written in Hebrew, we all gotta admit that, right?
They say Paleo
We've all
Hebrew.
was taught, even that. That's what I'm talking about. We've all been taught that the original Torah was written in Hebrew, right?
Okay.
Right? So now what I'm saying is, do we accept that that's a lie?
That the original Torah was written in Hebrew.
Is that a lie or is that the truth?
No, I'm not gonna call it a lie, and I can't call it a lie right now.
You know why?
Because I haven't
Let's
personally.
Google Paleo Hebrew. Let's do it. Let's Google Paleo Hebrew.
If you Google Paleo Hebrew, is it gonna give you a date when that language originated?
Let's find out. Let's find out, because we gotta get past, we gotta get to this point. To could it have even been written if we've been taught that the Torah was written in Hebrew, because that's the language they always tell us to go back to, even if you want to understand what the Bible is actually saying.
Yes, because the Torah has been given to us in
They
Hebrew.
want you to, yeah.
It's a variant of the Phoenician alphabet.
So yeah. So we're not talking about just not Phoenician though.
No, yeah.
When did that Phoenician develop into what we know as Hebrew?
This is Wikipedia.
It's probably gonna be around 1000 BCE. It's gonna be somewhere around in there, give or take.
Okay, it says time period 10th century BCE.
10th century BCE is 1000 BCE. That's what 10th century means. 1000 BCE. So now that we've Googled it, do we accept that if Moses wrote a Torah, there could not have been a Torah written in Hebrew during the time of Moses? Do we at least accept that? Do we all agree? Do we have a
That it wasn't
consensus on
written
that?
in the Hebrew that we read of this day, or even the Paleo.
Just
That was
the Hebrew, that's the first Hebrew, the Paleo Hebrew, kinfolk. That's my point. That's the point that I'm making. Is it a lie that there was a original Torah written in Hebrew that could have went back to the time of Moses that was copied by a scribe? Can that be possible? Or do we at least agree that we just established that that's
it's
not
most
possible?
likely that it was not Paleo.
Okay, so now
If it was written before the 10th century, according to when this
that's
thing
what I'm saying.
says.
Moses had the
had
story
that.
of Moses.
The original couldn't have been written in Paleo Hebrew.
So-
You got me thinking about them scribes who came years later to finish up.
That's what I'm saying. So
You know what I'm saying?
now we know if anybody is saying that they took a Hebrew copy of the Torah from Moses and copied it down to our day, that's not historically accurate.
So are you saying that during Moses' time there was no way of communicating there was no writing system, no way of communicating?
We can go into that discussion after you accept that it wasn't Hebrew.
Oh yeah, I can easily tell you that Moses, but what I'm saying, what we've got from the scribes was Hebrew. I'm not sitting up there saying what the scribes got from that time was Hebrew.
So they made
what we got from the scribes is Hebrew.
So the whole concept that we have to study the Bible in Hebrew to get a real understanding is false.
No, it's not false because you don't have no Bible. You don't have no Bible
Everybody is
before
agreeing.
Hebrew.
So Moses couldn't.
Because see how
you know
watch
what
this.
you just said?
So you're saying that you have a text or there's a text that exists that's prior to Hebrew. I'm saying yes. You're saying no. I'm saying in order for us to get the Hebrew, a scribe translated the language that Moses was writing into Hebrew. That was a everyday language for the Hebraic people.
Okay.
What I'm saying is before that scribe translated that language, the Hebrew people was able to communicate with each other. Maybe not in Hebrew, of course, but they was able to communicate with each other, and they had documents and they had a language. So we gotta say that the Israelites had a language in Kemet. We gotta say they had a language.
I'm with you.
So that Semitic language, are you saying didn't exist for these people to actually translate it?
Well, now we can get into that because first I wanted to make sure we all understood that we have to, we got to lose more ground now. And that's the point that I'm making, because the story has always been that this Torah was originally written in Hebrew.
Originally written in Hebrew.
So now that we've established that is not historically accurate, now we can move on to the next point. So are you now telling me that he wrote it in Phoenician? Because if that's
I don't know what language Moses wrote it in. I can only give you the language
that he wrote it in Phoenician. Because if you say he wrote it in Phoenician, then we'll deal with why that can't be accurate.
What I'm saying is that Paleo Hebrew was birthed out. It's a sister language. It's a Semitic language.
Yeah.
So it's so similar. I think if somebody was speaking Paleo Hebrew and somebody was speaking Phoenician, they could communicate with each other.
So why didn't they tell you that the original Torah was written in Phoenician? Why didn't they tell you that?
Because they might, I don't know.
You feel what I'm saying?
What were you saying?
You say they had this confused conversation.
Yeah. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah.
So do you believe that Moses was able to communicate with his people?
That's just it. Now, I don't think it was a Moses according to the story.
Okay, well, during that time, did they have communication?
What time is the time of Moses?
Let's go with 12 or 13. Between 12 and 1300.
So it was the Israelites were enslaved there in Egypt for how long?
215 years.
So we pushing back to like 1500.
Yeah.
When this brother was talking, that's why I wanted to bring you back to the Hyksos, because you do know that in a certain area it was Hyksos rulers in Egypt,
Yes.
and the brother pointed out that those Hyksos are the Hebrews, or the progenitors
According to what
of the
Josephus
Hebrews.
told, you know,
So you don't agree with that now?
I ain't saying I don't. I'm just saying I wasn't there. I'm gonna go with Josephus on some stuff. You know.
I'm
So
saying
what I'm
that
saying
the
is-
Hyksos became the group of people known as the Israelites.
That exactly. You have to go there, right?
Okay,
You have
yeah.
to go there. Now we really finna get to something, because there were no Hyksos enslaved in Egypt at that time.